security frameworks that is very effective from a security strategy point is what we call the zero trust framework. And from a zero trust framework, one of the things that it advocates for is don't be too much worried about the attack surface. What were the top techniques that attackers are using to exploit organizations are changing very fast. At the top of that list is what we call social engineering and ransomware. But the ways in which ransomware is being delivered to organizations and social engineering is also changing very fast. If I walk into the office as an IT manager or a security manager, if I work in as a risk manager, what data do I have at hand that gives me visibility into malicious activity within this network? I think that's where you start, because these are the indicators that tell you, hey, I think if you do not change these habits, you're likely going to end up seeing a doctor in the next 3 months.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cyber Weekly. So, in this episode, we have a very interesting guest. His name is Martin. Um, Today, I want to start with asking Martin, first of all, if someone was meeting you on the street and didn't know about Serianu and didn't know about Martin, where would you start to tell them about yourself?
Thank you very much, Okello, for the invitation. And I'm very delighted to join this conversation. Interesting question. I think without Seriano and without what I do as a cybersecurity professional, I'm a father of two, I'm a husband, and I'm a person who is delighted and excited about leading and mentoring other people. So I think what we mostly find ourselves doing outside work sort of begins to define us. I think those are some of the things that I get to enjoy doing. I'm glad to have this conversation because it's in alignment to what I like to do, that is to mentor people.
Okay. So, a little bit about what you do at Seriano. If someone wants to know exactly what you do there and how you got into cybersecurity as a whole.
Wow, interesting. Got into cybersecurity, that's more than 10 years ago. Serianu is a Pan African cybersecurity firm based in Nairobi. We eat, breathe, and live cybersecurity. It's been a privilege to be part of Seriano for the last 11 years. What we do at Seriano is to work with organizations to help them focus on what they do as a business, as we then help them to secure their businesses. So, if this is a hospital, we help them to focus on what they should be doing in terms of taking care of patients. But we then help them to focus on securing their systems. Banks the same, private sectors the same. So we have been privileged enough to work with organizations across public and private sector. But that's in a nutshell is what we get to engage with to engage with different organizations to do. In my capacity at Seriano, I'm a cybersecurity consultant and with a focus on technology, risk and security operation center advisory, which means that there are organizations that will come to us to help them to simulate what attackers can do, and we then help them to uh, fit into the shoes of an attacker. Have organizations that will come and ask us to help them investigate what attackers have done in terms of if they have been an unfortunate victim of a cybersecurity attack. And we also step in the same shoes and help them to identify what happened. And we also have organizations who are trying to start their cybersecurity journey. They are unsure of where they should start, whether in terms of investing in technology, training their people. So it's across the broad range of services that organizations will engage us for. We range from training services to security operations center to cybersecurity assessments to forensics and incident response. And we've been privileged enough to work with organizations in all those different areas.
Okay. Seems you have a handful of daily activities. So, if you are to expand on that, based on your experience, what has been your experience transitioning through the various cybersecurity roles as up to date, and what has helped you come along to this point?
I think Okello, looking back sometimes, careers are sometimes not a straight line. Looking back, then you realize it's not really been a straight line as you had thought it would be. I did not think that I would take the exact career path in cybersecurity that I have taken now. When I started my journey in cybersecurity, I applied for a cybersecurity internship position at Serianu right after school, after my fourth year. And I was very green. I mostly tell people that I think I'm greener than a lot of people who are green in their cybersecurity positions because during my interviewer asked me a very simple question: "What is a pin command?" I had no idea what a pin command was. For those of you who are, you know that is one of the most basic questions. But I like to make that I was prepared for all the questions, just that I wasn't prepared for the questions that they were asking. But that, but I think that was my entry into cybersecurity. It was a very very different career space. I remember sending some of the interview questions to some of my friends who were ahead of me in school, because I was supposed to work on a case study and present during the interview, and they had no clue. So I was on my own. I had to research on my own, and having done Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, I think security was interesting for me. I was very curious, but it was new. So right from the word go, stepping into cybersecurity was this complex field, but the few interactions that I had and exposure with security as a career field was from me watching movies and very interesting CSI series and getting very interested on what these guys do. I was interested on the black screens, and I thought it was interesting, but I was still very green. So that was the experience, joining a field and getting into a field that you're very new to. But I thought whatever was required of me, if I would focus and just get to learn. I thought it would be interesting to continue learning, and it's been a continuous learning journey to date.
Okay, that's an interesting journey. Um, Definitely, you've carried out different roles. What has actually helped support the new roles as you climb the ladder? And what do you miss actually from the actual work of, pen testing and all that, or do you still actually do that?
So the transitions that I have had in my career, when I started my career journey in Seriano, I started from the offensive side. Um, from a technical side, there is what we call the BAD pyramid: build, attack, and defend, where you are trying to you can either be a cybersecurity professional, but your focus is on the attack side. And I think that was my entry into the field, working with organizations to help simulate what bad guys were doing. So that was pretty exciting for me. I remember in one of the um, pen test engagements that we were doing, calling one of the IT professionals from my laptop and being able to call their phone, their landline phone. And I remember the interface on their phone was reading, "You have been hacked." And that was intriguing to both of us. And the more I continued, the more I was very intrigued on what attackers actually do. Because for us who are privileged to work in the field, you get the rare opportunity of stepping into the shoes of what would be malicious actors. But as you spend time on the offensive side, you still get to ask yourself, all right, what can an organization do to defend themselves? So that was the second phase of my career. As I spent around 2 3 years on the offensive side, I would still change roles and also get to appreciate what the defender can actually do. So you spend time doing the attack, and then you switch and you get to spend time simulating what a defender can do, whether it's in implementing the systems that can catch the bad guys or detect the activities they're doing. That was also interesting, I think. So it was a journey of staying curious and seeing what's changing. What there was an excitement and curiosity and what we call your hackers thrill on the offensive side. But then when you get to the defender, you're also very curious about making sure that the hacker or the offensive person does not break into your systems. So that's also exciting as well. And then on the build side, you get to work with developers, you get to work with engineers to implement the systems that should be detecting and preventing malicious actors from penetrating into organization networks. So it's been a full circle, and I think that was the focus for the first, I would say, 5 years of my career at Serianu. And then as I transitioned, I would notice that the presentations that we were doing to your business decision makers and the executive and the management teams, there was a bit of a disconnect because they sort of were looking for a different um, narrative away from the technical jargon that we techies were exposed to. So once you have done a penetration testing exercise, you got to appreciate that there is a different way that you communicate those findings to a business executive. I think that was a completely different experience for me. And again, I was very curious about that. Just getting to appreciate what does a business executive actually look for. How do you communicate to different stakeholders within an organization, even past the cybersecurity assessment project? How do you make sure that your report findings not only make sense to you as a consultant, but how do you make sure that you can simplify that language as much as possible so that it helps them change the decisions that they would have made, or it helps them improve the quality of their decisions. So I think the biggest transition in my career was really getting out of my technical bubble, because it's difficult. You love what you do. It makes sense to you, but you realize it doesn't make sense to everyone, and you really have to find a way to make sure that it makes sense to everyone. You have to find the right ones. The right ones. You have to learn from your colleagues. You have to ask the customer as well. What do you think? How do you think we can change the way we are communicating this so that it does communicate our findings to you in a better way. So it's been a transition to the point whereby you're able to communicate to the business, irrespective of the nature of the assessment or the project that you are engaged in. Okay, sorry,
That
you're on
has
mute.
actually
Okay.
helped us. Sorry about that. That has actually helped us dive into the next phase of our conversation, which is if we are looking at boards and their needs, how do you help support their decision making towards investing into these cybersecurity programs? Because at the end of the day, definitely we need these tools, But at the end of the day, also, it's a business, so they need to make money. How do you make it resonate with them?
So boards and your top decision makers are very keen on what they are looking for. The role of a board within the organization is different from what the executive management teams and the C-level management teams are doing. It's different from what the person who is in charge of security would be in charge, would be looking for. So there are different insights that different stakeholders within an organization are looking for. And I think at the board level, one of the things that the board is interested in, which has been a very contentious issue for us as cybersecurity professionals, is the ability to communicate the possibility of the organization losing money, losing data, losing service, or losing trust, reputation issues. So that's what the board is interested in. So you'll walk into a boardroom and you have a 75-page report, but out of that report, the only question they want you to help them answer is, are we safe or not? So it becomes a bit of breakdown in the communication, the expectations, because you either stand before a board and you can reason it to what the expectations are, or you're completely off what their expectations are. But I think understanding what the board needs and what their role is to the organization is very important for any cybersecurity professional who has been tasked with carrying out any cybersecurity engagement. It might be a penetration testing exercise. It might be a cybersecurity audit. As you're doing all these, you might be developing a cybersecurity framework, developing a strategy and roadmap. Uh, Irrespective of whatever engagement that the board has asked of you or the organization has asked of you, I think one of the questions that is important to for us as cybersecurity professions is to understand what the board expects of you. And I think at a very high level, those are some of the 4 or 5 questions that a board is looking for. Am I going to lose more money? Is the likelihood of me losing money in the next 3 months, is it higher or lower? Is the likelihood of me losing data in the data protection um, age, where Data Protection Act is a law of the land? Am I more exposed to fines from regulatory bodies or not? Am I likely to lose reputation? Am I exposed to reputation risks? And those are some of the very basic questions that the board is looking for. But again, it's not a simple job to answer those questions. So what we do mostly is we will bring to the board the cybersecurity events and the attacks and what is happening in the news. And as much as that is exciting or that can be scary to the board and the decision makers, if we do not help them improve the quality of their decisions, or help them provide them with the right data that can help them help you as the management professional or as the consultant, provide assurance on the decision that you're supposed to make. I think there might be a disconnect there. So I think to the board, they're looking for insights on those 4 questions. But then for you to answer those questions, there are all these different data sets that you need to draw from. And part of it might be, hey, we need to invest in a firewall. And the board will ask you, why do you need to invest in a firewall? I need an antivirus. But last year, we approved a budget for a next generation antivirus, which you told us was the best. What has changed? You need to go back to them and tell them, no, that has been bypassed. There is a malicious software that has been able to bypass that antivirus. So it becomes a very technical conversation, and you're likely to just lose them in that conversation. So I think that's the dilemma of keeping the board engaged in those 4 areas, but at the same time not overloading them with too much information, but empowering them with the right decision, the right data that can help them make the right decisions.
Yeah, that's a very hot topic. Let's dig deep into it. Losing money, losing data, losing trust. Um, an
Yes,
organization has come and you want to onboard them. How do you help them quantify some of this? Because sometimes you might say, okay, we are losing money, and they'll tell you, maybe I've not been hacked the past couple of years. Why should I actually invest? And how much money will I be losing in the first place? Someone will say, okay, losing data. We have a firewall. Maybe we don't have anything else in the background. How does it look like? And trust. Some companies will be like, oh, we already have a big reputation. What is it that Serianu will be bringing on the table to help us, you know, in this situation?
absolutely. A good question, Okello. I think the analogy of our own health is an interesting one in comparison to what organizations are mostly looking for. Most of the times when we go to a doctor, we have a health emergency, and most of the time the report that we get from medical professionals is that this was actually preventable if you are monitoring it over time. And unfortunately, that's the situation that a lot of organizations face. So you'll either be an unfortunate victim of a cyber attack, and then that would be your wake up call. But if you had tracked what is happening, there are ways that you can track what is happening in your own body. You can go for medical checkups frequently, and the doctor tells you, hey, you need to do more exercise, you need to change your eating habits. And I think those are the habits, those are the indicators that a lot of organizations do not have. As somebody who is mandated with providing oversight over cybersecurity or technology risks within an organization, I think these are some of the questions that you ask yourself. What is the likelihood that somebody can have access to my systems or has had access to my systems in the last 8 hours? If I walk into the office as an IT manager or a security manager, if I work in as a risk manager, what data do I have at hand that gives me visibility into malicious activity within this network? I think that's where you start, because these are the indicators that tell you, hey, I think if you do not change these habits, you're likely going to end up seeing a doctor in the next 3 months. And this information is available. And you'll be surprised that a lot of the organizations that are actually compromised, and they have had a malicious actor gaining access to their systems. You'll be surprised that a lot of them, during the forensic investigations, whether they are doing this internally or whether they have engaged us, we find that the tools and the systems they already have, the security tools, were warning them 3 months ago. They did send an alert saying, hey, somebody is trying to change a configuration on this asset. I'm seeing malicious traffic on this network. But there was either no process in place to follow up, escalate, respond to fix that issue, or it was too much data. And unfortunately, it was one in 1,000 alerts that come to that same analyst within the day. So I think there lies the challenge, Okello. We have a lot of indicators that if you are able to drill down to some 15 to 20 indicators that you are able to follow up on a weekly basis, and you can begin telling where your gaps are. I'll give you an example. What is the likelihood that we have malicious software in our endpoints? Endpoints being a server, an endpoint being, for example, a user workstation. What is the likelihood that we have that? How do you get that data? So I think that's a question, and there are a lot of very good frameworks that you can use. IIS framework, for example, is a very good framework. The NIST framework is a good framework. There are a lot of different frameworks that give you um, give you ways to sort of a checklist that can help you as a security professional who has been mandated with providing oversight of, of your security function within an organization in answering these questions. So I think at the end of the day, anyone who is in charge of security within an organization will very likely need to have a checklist of indicators that at the end of the day, at the end of the week, they can look and validate whether they have that data. If you do not have data that helps you to answer the question, have we done backups this week? Were they successful? Can we recover from those backups? Have we scanned our endpoints, our critical systems? Were there any vulnerabilities or weaknesses that we identified? Are there any critical weaknesses that were identified that can actually be exploited? If you don't have that data, then you know you're blind. Then with that information, you can either go back to the board and say, we are highly exposed to the possibility of somebody exploiting our systems and leading to losing data because we don't have that visibility. So I think from a starting point, what would we do when organizations engage us or when we onboard an organization? We start where a doctor starts. You might go to a doctor and say, I am very sure that this is what I'm suffering from. But a doctor does not work with that. They have to do their own tests. They have to come up with their own diagnosis. So we also do the same. We listen to you, but we also spend time. We do our tests. We spend time with your people. We understand what is the current state, and then we build an ideal state. And then we are able to build the processes, the people, and the technology layers that can help us move from where you are right now to what will be ideal.
Thank you for that. I definitely think that is the key way of actually handling issues, because sometimes we all want to just plug in things here and there, but we don't actually confirm whether actually these people actually need them, and if it's actually required for that particular organization's basically need. Um, Now, there's an area I haven't talked about so much, cost, because sometimes I feel like my personal opinion is most of the times when it comes to board, they want to look at, okay, you've said we've invested in this firewall. This firewall, yes, it costs this and X amount of money. How much are we saving, or how much are we not losing because of this actual firewall? I don't know if you get my point. How do you navigate that conversation in terms of this is the cost benefit of actually having this thing available? Definitely, that's I'm sure a very big topic in trying to onboard those customers. So, how do you do that?
I think if you take the analogy of what it takes to secure a house, for example, if you're worried that somebody might break into your house, you have to have a strategy. Ultimately, you might want to have the world class alarm system. You might want to have dogs outside. You might want to have that electric fence. But you really need to understand where you are right now. So that's always a good place to start. You'd rather know that I have money or I have jewelry in my safe, and this is a room that has that, but I don't have a wall. But in the next 2 to 3 months, that's the first thing that I'm doing. And then over time, I think these are the different security capabilities that I will need to invest in. So the challenge is the way we invest in those technologies, and I'm just using that as an analogy, it's mostly reactive. So you hear somebody's house has been broken into the same way our networks are broken into. You hear that has happened, and you say, what did they do? And then you copy that and you paste it. Not even thinking about the cost of what they were protecting. So sometimes uh, using a copy and paste might work, but in the long term, it's not the desirable strategy. Uh, it's it's uh, preferred for us to really think about our crown jewels. Think about what you are protecting. So think about that safe. What do you have in that safe? What is the worst thing that can happen if somebody gets hold of what you have? If you spend time aligning as an organization, aligning as different stakeholders, ask yourself, what are we likely to lose? Are we more worried about losing money? Are we more worried about losing service downtime? Are we more worried about losing data? Are we more worried about trust? Of course, reputation will be an outcome of all this. But really, what are we most worried about? Can we live with 1 week of downtime? Would we can we live with data being can we live with financial fraud? Or would we rather have our data on X? What can we not afford losing? So most of the time you'll find that we have fragmented objectives from a security point. There's some of us within an organization who think that I cannot afford to lose data, but to a different group of stakeholders, the goal is money. So I think if you're able to spend time aligning as an organization on what your focus is in terms of what you're protecting, it's what we call your protect surface rather than your attack surface. One of the interesting security frameworks that is very effective from a security strategy point is what we call the zero trust framework. And from a zero trust framework, one of the things that it advocates for is don't be too much worried about the attack surface. If you're worried about the attack surface, it's the same way as living in a neighborhood and you're always worried about cars that are passing by and you're always worried about is there somebody who might break in. You're worried about noise that is coming from your neighborhood. You need to spend time knowing what is happening around you, but that is what we call your attack surface. You can worry yourself, but you need to do something. Now what you have control over is what we call the protect surface. Then the best place to start from is know your crown jewels and know that you can protect that. As much as you have what you call your attack surface, which attackers can try and attack that, which is the information and assets that are internet facing. You have very little control over that most of the time. But what you have control over is information and data and systems that are already within your network. So what's a good place to start? Start by doing a discovery. Know where your data is. That's what a data driven cybersecurity approach. Start from where your data is. Know your data. If you have 100 servers within the organization, 100 systems? You don't need to protect all 100 systems. 80/20 principle. There is always be 5 to 10 assets that are most critical, but is everyone aligned on this? Do you all agree that if we protect these 10 assets, even if we would lose data from the 80, that the business can still operate? Is that the common understanding? So it's a preferred approach if you know what you're protecting, because it allows you to begin thinking about the firewall as a control. That's your firewall is actually your gate person as it gets. They're inspecting who is supposed to come in and at what time do they have an appointment. And we have all these beautiful controls, and the cost in terms of the investment that goes to each of those controls vary, and a decision needs to be made on what you will invest in. But you're able to make those decisions if you're very clear on what you're protecting. You can say, for now we are okay not investing in in the prevention controls and security controls that will protect the 80, but for now we're going to focus on these 20 critical assets that are hosting our most critical data, and then over time we're going to expand that layer.
Yeah, that's definitely a unique way of looking at it, and I think yeah, that would work more efficiently compared to any other idea I actually had. Yeah, so yes, so you finally got the customer. Uh, Um, how do we ensure that? Now, a good example is now the penetration testing and all that. How often should it happen, and does that also help in terms of ensuring that the organization is maintaining its security, or our first basis should always be, um, you know, ensuring that you actually know where your crown jewels are? Is that the first basis, or actually the pen test can actually help us, guide us to know actually that, you know what, we are not so safe and we need to take this seriously?
A very good question, Okello. So let me give you the industry response to that. Then maybe I would give what would I think would be ideal. Industry, you'll find that you're supposed to do a pen test once a year, or sometimes twice a year. Let's look at this from a practical point. What we call a pen test is come and try to break into my house. Now, sometimes a penetration testing exercise, and for the sake of our audience, your penetration testing exercise is supposed to be what an attacker, your ethical hacker, comes to do to simulate what a malicious actor will do in trying to gain access to your critical information or causing fraud by exploiting the weaknesses in your system. So that's what any organization that is looking for a pen test, that's what they're looking for. But I think it's important for us as decision makers to also ask ourselves, do I really need a pen test now? Now, if you've just built a house and you do not have a wall yet, right? It's the next thing that you're going to build. You don't have that alarm setup yet. What's a good place to start? Don't you think it would be good for you to have a very clear strategy on how you're going to implement those controls? And then you now bring in somebody who can try to break in. Unfortunately, what we are seeing in the industry are organizations looking for pen tests, but you find that there are a lot of open doors and open windows. So what you're calling a pen test is not really a pen test. Your door was actually open, just came and walked in, and I told you I've been able to exploit and gain access to your systems. Ideally, that should not be the case. A pen test should be a scenario whereby you have your alarm system is working, your doors are secure, your alarms are working, your door locks are secure, you have the best, and then you say, you even test it internally, and you say, I think I need to engage an external consultant or the service provider who can help me really take this to another level and simulate what a malicious actor would do. Now, that's what you are hoping that within our organizations we have done by the time we are calling in a pen tester. Now, let me on the flip side, we work with organizations who have different requirements. So we this is a value that we offer in organizations. We walk into an organization who are looking for a pen test, and because of the nature of that pen test, the recommendations and the output from such an engagement becomes helpful to them still. But I think the goal of a pen test is really you want to do a pen test at the point whereby you have your controls and your security systems up and running, and you want to make sure that no one can break in or to prove that no one can break in. That's what you would be looking at. The question that you asked on the frequency, I think times have changed. Okay, I think what we used to do in doing a pen test once or twice a year, I think organizations need to evaluate that as well. The reason being, attackers are not waiting for once or twice a year. They're actually doing this on real time. So, are you going to wait to do a pen test once a year? And remember, by the time you're even closing the issues from that pen test after 30 days, you have already changed your systems. New vulnerabilities have already been identified. So by the time you're bringing in another pen test over 6 months to come or 12 months to come, what happens between that time window? So I think those are questions that organizations need to ask themselves, the security owners within the different functions. What can we do really? And I know there's a cost implication to this, but what can you do? If you're a startup, if you're a small business, you can even see whether you can tap into open source technology. But what can you do to be as close as possible to what the attacker is doing? I think that's the thinking. The offensive person, the defender should be as close as possible to what the offensive person is doing on the other side. So if those are the questions that we're asking ourselves, then it would mean that we need to make it more frequent. Is it possible to even do it on a weekly basis? Can we continuously test our systems on real time and know the vulnerabilities that we are exposed to and validate the exploitability of those vulnerabilities? I think there's a change that we are seeing from an offensive and even vulnerability management side of things. But definitely, your once a year pen test, Okello, your twice a year pen test will no longer work with in the AI and uh, availability of tools through AI that we are now living in.
Thank you for that. As we are drawing towards the end of this conversation, I would like to know, is there anything you actually would want to share that we actually missed in the questions we actually had today about Seriano and what you offer?
Thank you, Okello. First, I think it's been the approach that we've taken over the last 10, 12 years at Serianu has been research based because attackers are changing. What were the top techniques that attackers are using to exploit organizations are changing very fast. At the top of that list is what we call social engineering and ransomware. But the ways in which ransomware is being delivered to organizations and social engineering is also changing very fast. At the highlight, I think what I would want to just put some emphasis on is what we are seeing on the needs of an organization. One of the questions that you had asked was on what the board really needs. I think if you take that question further and you break down the different consumers of security insights within an organization, that would be a board, that would be risk teams, that would be an audit team, that would be technology owners from an IT point. Then you'd have the security team, finance, for example. You want them to approve your budget. We are seeing a breakdown in a common language. One of the challenges that we've had in security is a lack of a common language that allows the board, IT, allows risk, allows audit, allows security, allows finance, allows procurement, who is looking for vendors. We do not have a common language that allows all these people to talk together. And I think we've been on the forefront of designing research-driven frameworks that help organizations develop that common language. Where when you go to the board, you do not talk about ransomware, you actually talk about losses. When you talk to the risk teams, you do not necessarily have to get technical, but you get into their risk language, which is the top risk scenarios that an attackers will exploit. You flip that side, you go to the technology teams. Technology teams, of course, will talk about technology, and you go to your security team, you talk about threat scenarios. You go to the finance teams, and you're talking about your return of investment for the different security investments that you are proposing to the business. So I think there has been a breakdown in terms of communication and having a common language that allows all these different stakeholders within a cybersecurity program to interact and derive value. And that's what we have been at the forefront of doing. And we have designed a framework. There's a very interesting framework called the CVEC framework, Cyber Visibility Exposure Quantification, that is helping a lot of organizations to um, have a common language. And when you find risk and audit and technology team and the security team being able to talk to each other and find derive value from that conversation, it becomes easier for that to be cascaded upwards to the board and the decision makers. So that's what I would like to add, Okello. But I think it's been an absolute pleasure just to spend time with you. I would like also to encourage those who are joining the industry, cybersecurity, as a profession, irrespective of whatever background is. We have seen very interesting profiles of people who are now cybersecurity experts. We have very interesting profiles of my colleagues who are in Serianu. We don't only take in those who are from a technology background. We have people who come in from finance. So I just want to encourage those again who are pursuing a career in cybersecurity. It's to be curious and keep learning and consume as much knowledge as possible because knowledge now and information has been made available even more so with AI.
Thank you for that. Thank you for coming to the show. I am glad to actually have you on the show. And for those who actually want to follow you, feel free to follow him on. Yeah, I think you can talk about where to follow you.
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I think Okello will share a link to my profile, but feel free. You can just search for Martin M. Kamethu, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. And feel free, would be great to always connect with like-minded people in the security field.
What about Seriano? Where can we find you?
Serianu, if you go to our website, serianu.com, you'll find a lot of research material. We always interesting when you come across people who are doing their masters and they're doing their theses and they found reports that we have done across Africa that have been helpful to them in one way or another. So if you're looking for research in security, we're looking for data. There's African insights that are available. One of the things that we cry for is we do not have African content that is custom to us, but we do. So if that's what you're looking for, you can find us on our website. You'll find a lot of research material. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll include the LinkedIn and the Twitter for Seriano in the show notes. Other than that, see you all in the next episode.
Thank you.